Hello and welcome back once again to WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm George Upper, editor-in-chief of the Western Journal, and I'm joined today by two of our deputy managing editors, my good friend Joshua Manning on my right, and Brian Chai over here.
Thank you, Georgia.
And of course, we're joined by you. Thank you for being with us. You are always sort of the fourth member of this conversation. We're happy to hear from you in comments and emails, etc. Please feel free. We read everyone. We love to hear those. Today on the show, we'll discuss how the left claims to treat people versus how they actually treat people, including the latest political calculation or possibly clueless tweet. I'm not sure which it is, from our favorite leftist politician, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
My favorite's Bernie.
I'm sure. And a reminder that Hollywood loves politically outspoken women actresses, as long as their politics are reliably democratic. Before we jump into all of that, I want to tell you how you can make sure that you never miss an episode of WJ Live. It's very easy, and it's a simple, painless way to support us as well for free. That's my favorite way to support things, is to do it for free.
It's his favorite kind of labor, too.
Yeah, it's how much he pays me.
He's our direct supervisor, we can tell you.
Not completely untrue. Just go to westernjournal.com/newsletters. It's westernjournal.com/newsletters. Our crack technical team is showing you right now where to go. westernjournal.com/newsletters. You'll see there 5 options for newsletters you can sign up for. One of those is WJ Live. We will email you every day a link to the podcast as soon as it's up, or pretty soon after it's up anyway, so you never miss one. Look, my advice is subscribe to all 5 newsletters, okay? We will give you the best content on the internet, directly in your inbox, to edify, educate, encourage, and entertain you with insightful news, lifestyle, sports, and commentary every day. So I would sign up for all of those, and why not? They're free. It doesn't cost you a thing, and we don't want you to miss out on anything. News is important. We want to keep you informed. The big story, of course, this week is impeachment, accusations against former President Donald Trump of his what shall we say, uncivil comments about his opponents and those on the left. And however, it has come to our attention that Donald Trump is not the only one with a record of uncivil comments. Josh, who else do we have some evidence of?
Well, we're going to talk about Joe Biden, but I actually have a fascinating insight about this that I've never told any of you guys, and you guys don't know it either. Actually, almost no one knows this. In college, I did a really interesting paper on Clinton's second run for governor, and there's a fascinating anecdote in there I got from his campaign manager about the time that Hillary Clinton got ticked off at Dick Morris and talked about how that wretched Jew boy needed to go.
Hillary.
So Hillary, not Bill. Yeah, she hated. She was known to hate the Jew boy.
Wow.
That was so, and that's actually, we actually have that on tape. We don't have it here. We don't have it queued. It's actually at the Butler Center in Arkansas. But it's just an interesting tidbit for you. But go ahead.
No.
Joe Biden is who we're actually here to talk about. And if you followed the Western Journal, which I imagine you have since you were here, you know we have covered multiple stories about ridiculous, outrageous, outlandish, indefensible things that Joe Biden has said in the past. Well, our friends over at the Federalist, we love Federalist, they put together a very nice piece that they are calling 5 times Joe Biden openly urged violence against his political opponents. And we actually found a 6th reference. It wasn't necessarily for a political opponent, but I'll tell you about that at the end. First off, we're going to count these down. I want to give you guys a couple of these we can discuss, and then we'll take a look at another 2. He used the phrasing high threshold of pain. In 2018, Biden fantasized about hurting North Dakota Republican Senator Kevin Cramer, who was then challenging a Democratic incumbent. Said Biden, "I'd like to give him a high threshold of pain. I'm serious. I'm really serious." Now, I don't know how you give someone a high threshold of pain.
I don't. That's not. Yeah, I've never heard a threat vocalized exactly that way before. That seems like an abstract threat, but okay.
So
If you're built like Biden, that might be
That
the
might be
only.
the best you
yeah,
could
that might
do,
be the best
yeah.
you can do at any given
so based
time.
on that first one, Josh, it seems like these are going to be Biden's attempts at threats.
yeah, perhaps. But I don't know how you inflict pain on somebody without hurting
Without
them.
violence, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now you can hurt somebody and not harm them; those are different things.
Sure.
But still, essentially, it's a threat of violence. And then, of course, to remove. I love it when people do this. To remove any doubt, he says, "I'm serious. I'm really serious.
Right. Not just serious.
It's really serious. I'm serial. I'm really serial."
Serial guys.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to make of that, other than that he's basically threatening to hurt a GOP candidate who's in the way of his candidate, the person he's interested in. I mean, do you guys read that the same way?
Yeah, I mean, it is the origins of this sort of uncivil discourse are not all within the Republican Party or the right. I'm not saying that we're blameless on the right. In fact, I think some of the most recent stuff can be traced back to the Clinton impeachment trial in the late 90s. And some of that got pretty ugly, but it has never come back from that. It's been over 20 years. The thing with Joe Biden is that he does it in bizarre places, in bizarre ways. I mean, this is not.
Oh, wait, wait.
I totally get somebody saying something, to Joe Biden and Biden coming back. I'm not excusing it, but I understand that. Somebody says something to me, I might respond in a unprofessional way, theoretically. But to kind of jump into a third party dispute, between two other political candidates, to talk about violence instead of debating issues, which is sort of literally the definition of what politics are supposed to be and what politicians are supposed to do. That's just bizarre to me.
Well, Brian, I want to hear what you have to say on this.
Yeah.
Half a second, though, because that's not the only time he used that threat. But you're talking about him jumping in between two other people.
Right.
He managed to add a fourth party this next one. So Biden made the same threshold of pain remark at a campaign event for North Dakota's Democratic Senator Heidi Heitkamp, encouraging the president of a trade union in attendance at the show, to show Kramer a threshold of pain. So now it's not Biden doing it, he's outsourcing it to a union thug. Hey, union thug over there. I'd really like it if you'd show an idea for you. I'd really like you to show this guy a threshold. And the union guy over there. I mean, it's a tough Teamster or something. He's like, what the heck? A threshold of pain? Who are you? What's a threshold of pain? Like an Indian burn. I don't know.
Ooh.
I don't know. What do you think about all this, Brian?
Well, first of all, it's Native American burn. Second of all,
I think it's an indigenous people's burn now. So
my apologies.
Try and keep up.
My apologies.
I'm going to burn both of you. Go.
Honestly, it sounds like to me that Biden is trying to almost channel. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm saying President Donald Trump is a thug or anything like that, but there was a certain tough guy-ness to Trump. And it sounds to me like
There's
Biden,
a rawness to him that was very appealing to some.
And this sounds like your old daughter and grandfather's attempt to channel said toughness, tough guyness. It feels like Biden's trying to channel Trump, and he's just failing miserably.
You whippersnappers!
Yeah,
I got a union guy over there.
Yeah.
He's,
I'll show you how it's done.
I got a union tough over there. He's going to engage you in fisticuffs.
Yeah, exactly. Now you're doing Norm Macdonald.
Ridiculous. Old chunk of coal. Ridiculous. All right. So number 3, the go outside with me comment. Campaigning for president 2020.
Yep.
Biden told, now this is a bad decision. Biden told a Detroit factory worker, because those are the guys you want to threaten and tick off. Told a Detroit factory worker, you're full of, and challenged him to go outside with me. Now, I'm fairly sure that wasn't to play hopscotch. It might have been. I don't know. He could have also been trying to sell him shares in Burisma or something.
Given Biden's mental acuity of late, it's possible that he did have hopscotch in mind.
But it's very strange to just go outside. I mean, who That's such a. It's not a weird. I mean, I guess it's maybe sort of a weird. But who says that to somebody else? You don't say that unless you really are going to back it up and flatten. At least where I'm from, you don't do that unless you're going to flatten the person.
And you don't say it past the age of maybe 24.
Well, yeah, I mean, or to a constituent or a
we all
potential
grow
constituent.
out of that way of solving. We've all been there, but we all grow out of that way of solving problems.
I'm still sort of there.
Yeah. Well, you are.
You are
only
the most
24,
peaceful person
so.
in this place.
Oh, thanks.
You are. Yeah, you are.
But that, you expect better
kind
from somebody.
and gentle panda bear.
You expect something better from somebody who's been around on the planet for more than 3 decades,
right?
And he's been around for more than 7 decades.
So that brings out the question. We can't belabor all of this, but that brings out the question: Is this showmanship on his part? And if it's showmanship, does that make it a little more acceptable?
I absolutely think it's showmanship.
I would argue it does make it a little more acceptable.
You're arguing it's rhetorical, basically.
Yeah, it's showmanship. It's acceptable on principle, but as we'll discuss, throughout the show, that clearly showmanship is still a cancelable offense. So
that's a good point. That's a good point.
I would advise Joe Biden not to let his mouth write checks that his fists can't pay.
And that's exactly what he did for number 4. This was the Behind the Gym episode in fall of 2016.
Yeah. I was waiting for this.
Biden said he wanted to take Trump behind the gym. And there are only 2 things that happened behind the gym, and neither of them would have been good for anybody involved, but certainly not for Joe Biden.
Yeah. And they generally don't happen behind the gym in your 70s. That is not generally when that happens.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, well, we could go into all the hair sniffing stuff from Biden, too. Maybe he likes behind the gym. I don't know.
I don't see it.
And then number 5, the beat the hell out of him incident. In 2018, Biden doubled down on his 2016 remark, saying he wanted to take his future Republican opponent and, quote, take his future Republican opponent behind the gym and, quote, beat the hell out of Trump. So, my argument is that this is rhetorical. It's stupid, but I think for the most part it's rhetorical. It's bluster, it's bombast. And I would say that pretty much everything Trump has said along similar lines is exactly the same thing. There are turns of phrase. It's bombast. It's hyperbole. The Democrats really hung on to the word "fight." If watching the impeachment proceedings, fight, and they are saying that it necessarily means some sort of a physical confrontation. And that is one definition of it. There are lots of other definitions.
All you need is a
fight.
dictionary to realize that.
Right.
There are lots of ways to do that.
Right.
My wife and I occasionally fight. I have never struck her or vice versa.
Right.
So I don't think she's ever.
My wife and I rarely fight, and I would not strike her because she would flatten me.
I feel like she might have kicked me once, but I could be.
And I'm not small. I'm 6'1", couple hundred pounds.
No, I know your
Jamie
wife.
could take me down. No. She's a strong, played in the NCAA national championship game. Yeah, she's tough.
I will refrain from commenting about my wife.
The last.
Probably
well, I think she probably does beat you, and you probably deserve it.
And that's why he's refraining from commenting.
Exactly. Yeah. It'll only make it worse, Brian. It'll only make it worse. And then, of course, the last one, we were watching just 5 minutes before I walked into the studio. We happened to pull up the Corn Pop clip. Corn Pop was a bad dude. Do you remember the Corn Pop clip, folks? The Corn Pop clip is fantastic. Joe Biden's telling this incomprehensible story about when he was young and kids like to twist the hair on his legs. And he talks about a couple of tough black dudes who were hanging out there and how they had rusted razors and they were maybe kind of threatening him. And then his buddy, who is maybe the groundskeeper or something, takes him into the basement and cuts off a 6-inch length of chain. And Biden talks about wrapping it around Corn Pop's head. Imagine, just for a moment, if Trump had ever talked about wrapping a 6-inch length of chain around a black guy's head.
He'd be accused of threatening a lynching.
Yeah.
Lynching. Exactly what it is. So we're going to get into the double standard here, folks. That just sort of sets the stage. Think about that in terms of the impeachment. Think about it in terms of Brian's topic, which is coming. I don't know if you're next. I can't remember. But that just kind of sets the stage.
Well, and just one piece of advice for Joe Biden. 6 inches of chain isn't going to help you accomplish anything.
Exactly. It's about this.
Long.
About this.
It's, what are you going to do with that? 6 feet? Okay. Give me a
it had
break.
to be he was going to wrap it around his fist, and Biden misunderstood.
Who knows?
And thought he was supposed to use it as a kind of a flail or something. Instead of but it's poor man's brass knuckles, essentially.
Sure.
But only 6 inches, that's not going to get you much of anything.
It's not. It's going to... you know what? We could do that all day.
Corn Pop would have torn him.
Yeah.
Would have taken him behind the gym, and
who knows what might have happened after that.
That's what kind of a guy Corn Pop is.
Yeah, it really does. So there is this huge disconnect between what liberals claim to believe about how people should be treated and how they actually treat people. Another case in point is, as I said before, one of our favorite leftist politicians, Hillary Rodham Clinton, one of our favorites because she's just the gift that keeps on giving. She just she can't avoid stepping into it, and she's done it again this week. We have a tweet from her with regard to impeachment. This was early this morning. If Senate Republicans fail to convict Donald Trump, it won't be because the facts were with him or his lawyers mounted a competent defense. It will be because the jury includes his co-conspirators. Now, I don't know what anybody else thought in reading that for the first time, but the very first thing that I thought of was another time Hillary Clinton mentioned conspirators. We actually have that video as well. This goes back about 22, 23 years. Can we roll that clip?
Man, I haven't seen a bob haircut that good looking in 25 years.
It was sweet. That was sweet.
Yep.
Hillary Clinton, 1998, on the Today Show, at that point defending her philandering husband, President Bill Clinton at that time, and claiming that all of the Monica Lewinsky stories that had come out, this is right around the same time where he said, I did not have sex with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. And Hillary Clinton gets on the Today Show and says, this is all a vast right-wing conspiracy. Well, apparently that's Hillary Clinton's word for truth. The vast right-wing conspiracy was accurate. It was true. It brought to light things through Kenneth Starr's investigation that needed to be brought to light and that were, in fact, true. So when she says that there are co-conspirators on the jury that's going to try Donald Trump, that is the United States Senate, she's talking about, of course, Republican members of the United States Senate, I just have to wonder how clueless you have to be to use that phrase again when it was so... Now, yes, it was 22, 23 years ago. I get that. So it might not be top of mind for her, but it's certainly one of her most memorable clips. These are quotations that last forever. Next to her deplorable comments, at least on the right, that's probably her best known quote. And so as soon as she says conspirators, it invokes that again. It invokes that last time she claimed conspiracy, where she was dead wrong and the conspiracy was correct. And so it made me think that Hillary Clinton believes truth is a conspiracy against Hillary Clinton. That's the dynamic in her mind.
Which may be the only true thing she has ever said. The truth is a conspiracy against her. When you are on the wrong side of something, the truth is a conspiracy against you. The truth conspires to out. It will come out.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do to stop it.
So all we can do, of course, is speculate. But it does make me wonder whether Hillary believes what she's saying, whether she's sincere and just happens to be sincerely wrong, which is very possible, happens to us all from time to time, or is this an actual, like, purely political calculation that she doesn't even believe this whole co-conspirator thing,
Yeah.
but she felt like somehow that would play, in which case I mean, what are you thinking? How could you possibly think that would play? But anyway, do you think she's sincere? Do you think is that her worldview, Brian?
I don't think she's sincere, because at this point in time, I think I can safely say, personally, I don't think there's much sincerity to be had with the Clintons.
Okay.
Everything is a political machination, a political calculation. Everything's so tailored to make them seem like the the American political family, like the archetypal American political family. And I will say, though, that I do think Clinton is sincere in the sense that she's been in that insulation for so long, she's starting to believe it.
Yeah,
like
the echo chamber.
Yeah, the echo chamber. I think in the beginning, including probably that clip, which, by the way, I was only 10 years old when that clip came out. So I
Which
don't really,
clip?
The one we just showed.
No, that was 1998.
Yeah, I was 10.
Oh, you were 10
Yeah,
years old.
I was
Sorry,
10.
I thought you were saying the clip was 10 years old.
No.
Yeah, no, I have no trouble believing that you were.
But yeah, so like
merely
George's
a child.
age today.
Oh, shut up.
So I do believe, back then there was a certain level of fakeness to all that, but at this point, I think that fakeness has become her reality.
Yeah. No, I think she believed it then,
tell a
for
lie
sure.
long enough.
Yeah, exactly.
I believe in 98, she totally believed that. I have no trouble believing that at all. The only reason, and I tend to agree with you, Brian, the only reason I might disagree, or the thing that casts some doubt about this being purely political calculation, is that she is such a good political calculator. And this seems like such a bad move to use that word, unless she's just hoping nobody remembers 1998.
The word conspiracy. Okay,
Yeah, exactly. Seemingly making that link, not seemingly, making that link. Maybe she just didn't think people would put those two things together. I don't know. But if it's a calculation, it seems like she did it badly to me.
That's probably would be my instinctive response to it. I was thinking, I didn't know this was the question you were going to ask. I was thinking about this while you were talking because it was more interesting than listening to you talk. And
I'm a fascinating guy.
just playing.
That's why he's my good friend, Brian. Responses like that.
Well, I did wonder, on the calculated side of things, I did wonder if this was essentially an attempt to a sleight of hand to deflect attention more to conspiratorial groups like Q and those things. It's really in vogue right now with the left. And when you talk about conspiracy,
now that's an interesting idea.
So, and the thing that just popped into my head while we were talking about this is AOC is floating this too. The idea for Hillary to talk about the what was the quote? Conspirators in the jury,
Co-conspirators,
co-conspirators in the jury. AOC said something very interesting after she articulated the story about being terrified at the Capitol on the 6th. She was talking about the rally point where all of the Congress people were supposed to go, and she said she was uncomfortable going there. She was afraid that some of the white supremacist members of Congress might divulge her location, and she would be kidnapped. That's a very conspiratorial statement. To think that someone in the most, God help us, the most noble, that's a terrifying thought, the most noble deliberative body in the world would sell her out essentially to white slavers.
It's also so egotistical to believe yourself a logical target of kidnapping.
No, and the joke going around after she said it was like, no, 5 minutes later, and the van's going to drop her back off in exactly the same spot.
Please just stop talking.
Yes.
We'll drop you off wherever you'd like.
Yeah. You want to ride home? Whatever.
Yeah, we pay you.
You got it. We'll get takeout on the way. Just leave us alone. But that's such a conspiratorial sort of comment. And it's, Brian, I think you're right. Nobody is as calculating as the Clintons. They're incredibly calculating. My guess is that all of this is playing into a wider narrative that Q essentially is the Republican Party. They love the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot and all of that stuff, which was six yahoos, and I think at least a couple of whom were leftists, maybe.
Yeah, and they just made it into this huge
nutbags.
International conspiracy.
Right, right. So the idea, and then that plays into the security theatrics on the 20th, where you've got the an army, a literal army. I mean, how big's a division, George?
It varies widely. Depending on,
so you got 25,000 guys in there. I mean, that's a huge military presence. And the point of that was to say, look at the threat.
Yeah.
Look at the threat that's out there. We've got to have 25,000 people to defend us from these people. So I think all this is just another little notch increasing heat under the hot plate. Hot plate.
Josh, what you brought up actually just made me think of this is pretty standard game plan for the left, because you look at their process. They have the conclusion first, and then they twist and bend the path to best fit it, as opposed to what any moral person will do is you get the facts and then reach the conclusion. So you're absolutely right. Yeah, it does feel as if they are, if they keep saying there's a conspiracy, then every little non-significant nugget of information that comes out, they just twist and bend to.
It's the beauty of a conspiracy.
Yeah.
And then you pin it on the basket of deplorables.
Yeah.
And
it makes the theatrics is a perfect word for it. It makes the theatrics take on a whole new level of importance for them. That theatrical performance becomes reality, and it particularly becomes reality in a country that spends, most of our waking hours, if we're not working, watching theatrical performances.
Consuming media.
We watch YouTube. We watch TV. We watch even some of the panel shows, the Sunday shows that are supposed to be fact-based and political. There's so much theatricality to that as well. Of course, no more theatricality there than there is in Hollywood.
Yes. So
that was a smooth transition. That was so good.
And there's the lantern.
Yeah, there it is.
Look, when you're that good, you got to point it out. It's that good.
I think a better transition would have been talking about the pass Clinton's gotten to a woman who has not gotten such a pass.
Another fine transition, Brian. You can do the next one.
Folks at home, in literary terms, hanging a lantern is when something is incongruous in the writing and the author points it out. So to say, I know this is not quite right.
Right, exactly. It's a little wink.
Yes.
To the audience saying, hey, it's
or a compliment to oneself,
or a self-compliment
on a transition.
It could also be that
to another segment in a podcast.
Anyway, theatricality, Brian.
Theatricality. So,
speaking of,
people in theater are known as actors. I'm here to talk about an actor. No, so I guess now former Star Wars actress.
Yeah, unfortunately.
In The Mandalorian.
My favorite thing in the Star Wars universe right now.
The Mandalorian or
Gina.
Oh,
Gina Carano. Actress Gina Carano. She's also a former MMA fighter. She was fired, I guess, for lack of a better term. Gina Carano was fired by Lucasfilms because she had posted I believe it was, this is how I know we have too much social media. It was on Instagram, she shared something from TikTok.
All right, maybe she should have been fired.
Just didn't matter what it said.
It was depending on who you ask, fairly controversial comment to varying degrees. She did delete the Instagram post, but we have a screenshot of it. If we go and bring that up. So Gina Carano wrote on her Instagram post, Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children. And then there's a quote in there, because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. So the implication, the comparison she's making is that being a Republican or conservative in today, she was sort of equating that to being a Jew during the Third Reich, which, look, any comparisons to Nazis and Jews is
you're
dicey.
always inviting some criticism.
Yes, but she was comparing process, not people.
Right. Yes.
And there is a difference. And the inability to distinguish between those two things
That's right.
is remarkable.
This is not
it's willful blindness.
That's right. This is not the everyone I don't like is Hitler grift. This is a look at this thing that happened as fact.
Yeah,
Yep.
this
as
is
historical
history.
fact in the past, in the not distant. I mean, there are people still alive.
It's a blink
who
of the
went through
eye.
That.
It's
Not
a blink of
distant
the eye.
past. This is not Genghis Khan or the Babylonians. This is recent 20th century world history, European history. It's not about the people who did it. It's about the process, as you said. It's about the process. This is what happened. And as so many people have quoted, if you don't, those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it, and it's essentially what she's pointing out.
Yep.
No, and there's an enormous amount you can learn. The 20th century was incredibly bloody. There's an enormous amount we can learn about the worst things that happened in the 20th century. Lessons from that are applicable to all sorts of other things in society. Yep. And if we say we can't draw comparisons because all of a sudden that means we're painting people as Nazis and Jews, that's ridiculous.
Yep.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
It was also incredibly well documented. It was filmed. It was televised. It was written about. It went out in newspapers over the wire. So we have a better opportunity to learn historical lessons from the past 100 years than from probably all of recorded history before then. And to willfully decide not to say, I'm not going to look at that. I'm going to dismiss it because it refers to people in a negative light who I like or who I agree with or who I have brunch with on Sunday morning, whatever, is nothing short of the beginning of the end of Western civilization. It is nothing short of that.
This is so... It's kind of humorous on some levels. We were talking about the chances that Gina Carano is just a full-blown conservative. Just not that she's just messing with it, but she's a real conservative. We think she probably is. There is no one group of, other than evangelical Christians, I suppose, there's no one group of people on the planet who are more pro-Jewish, pro-Jew, pro-Israel,
than conservatives,
anti-Semite, who despise anti-Semites than conservatives.
That's right.
So again, this is sleight of hand on their part. This is sleight of hand. It's recasting the idea that you would call conservatives Nazis. When conservatives are the ones who, first off, would be the ones to take up arms to stop fascists.
That sort of fascism.
And secondly, even if fascism wasn't a threat, we take up arms to defend the Jews. It's a remarkable thing. But this is just the quote Alan Bloom. It's the closing of the American mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it gets... And you guys
there are a lot
of
closed American minds in this story, though.
Yes. Including the so when Lucasfilm spokesperson put out an official statement, and it's really interesting. The statement begins: Gina Carano is not currently employed by Lucasfilm, and there are no plans for her to be in the future. Okay, so she's fired. Now, this part definitely caught my eye because, to Josh's point, this isn't. They seem to be twisting Carano's original message and running with that. So the statement continues, nevertheless, her social media posts denigrating people based on their cultural and religious identities are abhorrent and unacceptable.
As far as I can tell, the only people she denigrated was Nazis, by the way.
Exactly.
Keep going. Keep going.
And let's even back up from that. If she's currently not employed and there are no plans for her to be employed, where do you get off commenting on her social media? How was your thought about her social media of somebody who doesn't work for you even relevant?
Well, they are then commenting about her culture and her... It's enough. We really try not to curse on the air. It is enough to make
it gets you close, doesn't it?
Logan, we need a bleep.
Yeah, we're going to need to come up with that. We're going to need that 7-second delay.
So that sentence just kind of blew my mind. They not only did they, I'm going to assume, willfully misconstrue her original post, but
it's either willful misconstruction or blatant ignorance, stupidity on a colossal level.
Maybe not. Well, yes, but maybe fueled by just unbelievable hair trigger reactionism. That seems to be what happens with some of this stuff. Is that people are Pavlovianly conditioned that as soon as they see the word, they recoil from it like from fire almost. Just get it as far away from me as possible, and then they issue some dumb bleep button statement like this.
Yeah, and they don't use words like Pavlovianly, because that would mark the intelligence and
you got to have Pavlovian wouldn't be an adverb. You have to have a Lee on it.
Pavlovianly is quite good.
See what you've learned about literature so far today.
Another lantern,
you've learned about lanterns.
It was totally worthwhile.
Oh crap! Viewership's going down
no one's
in
watching.
real time. Go, Brian.
So it wasn't just Lucasfilm. Carano was dropped by a United Talent Agency, or the group that represents her. And there was an interesting report.
A good word for him.
In the Hollywood Reporter, a Hollywood Reporter source told them they, as in Lucasfilm, has been looking for a reason to fire her for 2 months, and today was the final straw. Backtrack 2 months, and you look at some of the postings she's done before, where people got really triggered by it.
About really stupid stuff.
Yeah, like one of them in September, in her Twitter profile, she put her pronouns as beep, bop, and boop. And people
cancel.
Who are we to judge?
Yeah,
based on this reasoning.
And people slammed her for being a transphobe.
There's such a corruption of.
And it's just
phobic.
You see that, and and eventually she did come up with a statement. I'm not against trans lives at all, but she did throw in they need to find less abusive representation. And she was, one of the things she's railed against is sort of that bully mob mentality of the woke mob.
Yep.
And a few other things she's done. She's outright kind of mocked and made fun of mask wearing. Probably her most controversial statement is she made a few statements about voter fraud in the election that, I can see, a lot of people just want to stay away from that. So I can sort of see people want to move on from that. But overall, it seems like she just has a lot of conservative values. And if that source is correct, Lucasfilm just wanted nothing to do with her because of that.
Look, I understand Lucasfilm or any company having a brand to protect. There are certain circumstances in which people who work for the Western Journal could go on social media or go in some other public forum and do something, and I'd have to yank their chain in one way or another. That's actually been very rare in my time here, but it's certainly theoretically possible. I have no trouble imagining that. But I do like to go back to Kurt Russell in these kind of instances where he had a great. I'm gonna mess up the paraphrase, but he had a great quote that something along the lines of, "I don't comment on politics because when people see me in a film, I want them to see the character I'm playing, not me." And the more they think of me as the actor, the harder it is to do that. That's a total paraphrase. I don't remember exactly how he said it.
Jordan said something similar.
Yeah.
Half my fans are Republicans.
Yeah, that's just great thinking, I think. But the whole protect your brand thing is done when she's not an employee of Lucasfilm anymore. Mm-hmm. It's over. There's no brand left there to protect anymore. She's disassociated. Leave it alone. All you're doing with that comment, Lucasfilm spokesperson, is reminding people that she was associated with your brand. It's actually the opposite of brand protection. So there's literally nothing intelligent or competent even in what Lucasfilm has done in response to this young lady's comments.
And Disney as a whole, Josh, I know Disney has actively employs a producer named Jack Morsey, whose most probably infamous moment is when he basically told MAGA kids or teenagers, something like that.
It was during the Covington.
MAGA kids. MAGA kids to shove their heads in wood chippers, accompanied by a pretty visceral cartoon.
It was an illustration of what it would look like if kids were being run through a wood chipper.
Yeah, and then you also see
Disney, folks. That's Disney.
And he's still there.
Yeah, still there. Perfectly fine.
That's okay.
And then you see Disney's relationship with communist China and the way they treat the Uyghurs, and not just like a competent business relationship. They praise them. They're like, thank you for letting us film Mulan there.
Oh,
It's a very very
so they want their money.
So
Yep.
Josh, like, what are your general thoughts on, sort of what's happened to Carano given the grander context of Disney's hypocrisy?
I think it's just Disney being part of the mob. I was thinking about what you were saying, George, just now about how Disney just has decided to keep going after her. And is that...
for no reason.
I haven't
no
given
business reason for that anymore.
I haven't given this very much thought at all, but isn't that more or less the definition of a mob?
Yeah.
Don't you become a mob after...
When there's no reason to keep going and you keep going.
Right, exactly. A guy murders somebody, a whole bunch of people drag him to the police station. That's not really a mob. They drag him to the police station and then into the alley behind the police station. That's a mob.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what this is. They are part of the mob mentality here. And I do think, this plays back into what we were talking about a second ago with Hillary Clinton and the talk about conspiracies and co-conspirators and those things and security theater and all of those things. I think all of this weaves together. They're hoping to paint a picture of conservatives as vicious, small-minded.
Yep.
What does Rush say? Rush has got 4 or 5 words that he strings together in a row, and I can't remember them now, but basically paint a picture of us as monsters, caricature us. What's really funny is if you look at the caricature that they write, it looks so much like the World War II propaganda about the Japanese that they hate. That's essentially what they do to us. So it's alarming. I think maybe the worst of all of this is that they placate the Chinese and play to the Chinese because they want Chinese money. And by the way, that Chinese money doesn't just come from nowhere. Certainly they make money off of the Uyghurs. They're using them as slave labor. But they essentially are exploiting but still most of the people in China. I've spent a reasonable amount of time in China. You want a strange image. Drive down a road and see a guy plowing a field by himself, pulling the plow himself. If he's lucky, he's got a water buffalo that'll pull it for him. And that cat's not taking home whatever little bit of money he makes. He's not taking it all home. The Communist Party's confiscating
the people get that.
money. So Disney, burn in hell. They want that guy's money. And so they're willing to let them enslave Uyghurs and do whatever they want. And that's absolutely horrible. And what's funny is if you fight back against it, then you're cast as the Nazi. And if you try to teach people a lesson from World War II, which is what she was doing,
an anti-Nazi
message.
lesson. Yeah, you are called a Nazi.
You're canceled.
Yeah.
And I don't know how both sides in this culture war. I don't know how they can coexist. I want us to unite as a country. I don't know how we get, other than through revival. I don't know how we get there.
Well, it's interesting you brought up the culture war, Josh, because the one last thing I did want to touch on real quick is sort of the aftermath of all this. So that culture war has become a cancel war. Because remember, when Gina first made those comments, cancel Gina, and it happened,
and they did.
And then once the equal and opposite reaction against Disney happened, now it's cancel Disney,
right?
With people canceling their Disney Plus subscription, stuff like that. One, do you think canceling Disney Plus on an individual level, like what actual impact do you think it can have? Because Disney does have access to all that China money, all that stuff. And two, sort of, do you think this is the correct response to cancel culture more cancel culture? Would you call that cancel culture?
So I was thinking about this actually while you were asking the question. It popped into my head separately. In the old days, what would happen here is the offended group would just say, I'm not going to watch The Mandalorian, or I'm going to cancel Disney Plus. And that's what they would call for.
Right.
And that's perfectly fine. That's the market at work.
Yep,
and
that's right.
And look, you go out and open a restaurant in downtown Phoenix that is whites only. Man, you're not going to give up now. You're not going to make it. And that's the market doing the right thing. It's the market doing it. But that's not what they want now. It's not enough to not watch the show or not go to the restaurant. You have to go after the individual person. And that is fundamental illiberalism. It is a lack of regard for the individual's right to think the thoughts he wants to think, even if they're wrong. Do you guys remember, I mean, years ago, people would say, somebody said, "Shh, don't say that." And the response was, "This is America."
Yeah.
I haven't seen anybody say that. It's completely anecdotal. I haven't seen anybody say that in real life or on TV in decades.
The last time somebody told that to me was when I had brought donuts into work, and he was taking it. It was Justin Koski had a banana in his hand, and he was taking a donut. And I said, "Dude, you can't eat a donut and a banana. You can't combine health and unhealth like that." And he said, "This is America. I can do what I want."
and that's
he was
just
dead
not
right.
it anymore. So you can't. It's not enough to let the person go off and be a failure, but still think what they want to think. It's that the person has to be punished for thinking what they think. It's Orwell's boot stamping on the face of humanity forever and ever.
And on that happy note, we need to wrap things up today for WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. Thank you so much for being with us. Today, we're here each and every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, to bring you the latest in news commentary and insightful discussion, we hope. We do that Monday through Friday every day. And to not miss an episode, I gave you one way at the beginning of the show. Here's one more way. Find us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/WJ Live. And just click that subscribe button and hit the bell. You'll be notified every time a new episode posts to that page, and you won't miss a single thing. That really helps us out. We see, every day we see the numbers. We see that lots of people watch the show on YouTube that haven't subscribed. So it really helps us out when you do that for us. Let us know that you value the content that we're bringing to you. It's really important to us. Meanwhile, we will be back here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, with another episode of WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. We hope to see you then. Until then, goodbye and stay safe. They might have to change their mind about China. I saw a piece today that the Chinese government is implementing education to make Chinese men more manly because they have been, according to the
Why'd
government.
you look at me when you said that?
The production crew is laughing again.
I'm not
Why
Chinese.
do you think I looked at... I didn't.
I'm not
did I say
Chinese.
you were Chinese?
Q, I'll make a man of you from Mulan.